this. We want to transition now into a fun segment that we call Start, Sub, or Sit here on the show. And so just briefly, we'll give you 3 different topics, ask you to start one, sub one, and then sit one. And then we'll kind of have a fun little discussion from there. So to start, this is in the area of leadership and kind of being a team captain or whatnot. So if your team is in a bit of a funk and you need to, as a leader, kind of work on getting them out of it, start, sub, sit, these 3 different ways that you can try to do that.
Okay.
So first one is either have a one-on-one conversation with other team captains, kind of to try to get on the same page. Second one is to do a group hang with the whole team outside of practice, go bowling, go to the movies, do something fun. Or the third is to have more of an official team meeting, say in a locker room or some area. Start, sub, sit.
Yeah, I'll start the team party. All good happen at team parties. It's where the bonding takes place. It's where the inside jokes are formed. It's those moments that allow you to have the tougher conversations, maybe in game, because it's where you build the trust. And once you have the trust, I always joke, I'm like, I'm going to be real nice to you so I can yell at you later. But no, truth is that the team party is definitely where it's at. Honestly, I probably sit the other 2. Okay. I don't really, to play the game, I guess I would put the team meeting.
You can do whatever you want.
I want. Yeah. As I say, I'll put the team meeting in the subcategory, but that to me is like final straw type of a move. Like I feel like it has to be going really bad to have like the team sit down, meeting, players only, things have been going really, you probably should have,
You should have done a team party.
Yeah, should have. Exactly. And then, there might be like conversations. I know I sat the other team captain conversation. Truth is, let's start over. I'll go start the team party. I'll sub the team captain talk, and then I'll sit the player only meeting.
Sure.
Because you should have open conversations like one-on-one with people that are also in kind of those like leadership roles.
Has that gotten easier for you as you've become more of a veteran to have one-on-one conversations than before?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Part of it is just like maturing, growing up. For me personally, part of it is coming out of my shell a little bit from a personality standpoint. It wasn't in my nature early on to do that. And it was also kind of, you're also avoiding conflict in a way.
Yeah.
And you avoid those conversations. And now I'm just at a point where I just don't care. I feel like in a good way, I've like established myself where I feel like I can say anything to anyone and they know it's coming from a good place. Like it's like my reputation kind of speaks for itself in that way. Like I'm not, if I'm saying something to you, it's because I believe in you and because I see something. It's not because I'm just nitpicking to nitpick. Like I'm trying to win. I'm trying to make you look good,
Sure.
So it's definitely gotten a lot easier.
Great.
Moving along. So my start, sub, sit, you're defending the ball in a pick and roll. So in terms of what defense you would want to be playing, switch, hedge, or drop?
Okay. I'm the one in the pick and roll?
You're guarding the ball in the pick and roll. So you're going to be getting screened.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll go... God, okay. So this goes without saying. It depends who you're playing against, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So it's like I'm not, Okay, goes without saying. But for me personally, what I like, got it.
Yeah. In terms of what makes your job easier.
My job easier. Okay. I think hedging is probably the easiest for me because I'm getting a lot of help from that post player who's pushing that guard back. But obviously hedging causes, some other issues depending on who you're playing against. So I'll start that because it's easier for me. Yeah. If we had Ice in here, by the way, Ice would be starting. That's the easiest. That's to me like the best old lady defense ever. I just have to jump to the spot. Yeah. Cool. And it's your fault if they go baseline? Great. There's subtleties in that though.
Sure.
So yeah, we'll go hedging, start, switching, sub, Because that's a close second, by the way. Those could easily both start. Switching, if you ever watch me play, it's kind of a joke when we watch film back with my team, because when we hit the switch, we 3-player switch, sometimes 4-player switch. That's actually been in the WNBA for, I couldn't even, like 15 plus years. I feel like it's just entered the NBA in the last couple of years. But bouncing the shorter play out, keeping size at the rim. Our teams in Seattle have been like historically very good at that. And it's funny when you watch me though, because I'm just like pointing, like, okay, you go there, you take that, you go over there, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm just constantly like navigating the whole thing. Yeah, like directing. I'm like, so it's pretty funny. But yeah, I love switching for that reason, because I think it messes teams up, and it's a way to, right, like keep the pick and roll at bay, giving no advantage in that way. But when you bounce the smaller players out, you know, you still keep that size of the rim, and it takes away that advantage as well. And then the drop, I don't really, that requires the guard. It puts a lot of pressure on that guard. You got to get over that thing. You know, you're not going under if you're guarding a shooter. So you got to get over. And in this league, it's really tough. But, you know, I know it encourages the long two, which is fine. So if a coach told me, like, listen, we're just encouraging whoever it is to shoot long two, so do this, I'm down to do it.
Yeah. On the switch and bounce out, are you staying at all with the roll? Are you trying to go over, under, or are you more like just kind of veering off immediately?
Yeah. So this is, you know, you'll come, I've had to have this conversation with some coaches I've played for. And I think it's fool's gold a little bit to tell me, in this case, to try to jam the roller. I think all that does is suck you in. Because listen, like, so this is the deal. We're talking about someone like myself. I'm 5'9", I weigh 145 pounds, and you're trying to tell me to jam a 6'7" player. Like, first of all, she doesn't feel it. I'm not stopping her. All I'm going to do is get myself stuck in a way where I can't get out to a shooter. So I do think there's like a happy medium between jamming and not hitting at all. So it's almost just like a hit and bounce. Like you kind of, you got to give them a little something so they think you're there, but then you're out. And that's where, you know, the trust from a team standpoint has to be there. Because I think a lot of players, when they do jam and they get stuck, it's because they're nervous. I guess the other post player who should be, you know, bumping you out isn't there yet. And so many times on film, we'll go back and, you know, a player will have jammed and stayed, and the post player was there to bump them out. They just didn't see it, didn't know, the trust wasn't there. So some of it comes with trust and working on it. But once you have it, I'm literally just like tap and I'm out. I'm going to find a shooter because that's probably who I'm closing out on.
Yeah. And Sue, in the triple switch, not giving anything specific from what you guys do, but is it mostly coming from the 2-player side that the triple switch is coming from? So the bottom tag is switching you out?
Yeah. It depends. Okay. You know, teams are getting craftier with where they basically hide people, you know, and we'll do the same thing. If we know, actually, we can stick with the same example. So if we've got a high pick and roll and a shooter in that one man eye, if that's a great play to run if teams are switching, because the person who would, you know, bounce, quote unquote, bounce the guard out is now, like, if I'm going towards the left, they're on that left strong side. So if they come in, I can hit that player easy. So teams are getting more strategic with where they hide, you know, that other post player. Because usually for us, it's a post player that's going to try to get in there to get the player out. So it just depends. But if you wanted to do like traditional, like, and think of it in like the horns scenario. So you've got the horns, the player goes off, you know, the right side, there's a switch. The post player who's on that left elbow, they will bump out the guard who then comes to the popping post. That's kind of like, everybody does that. So I'm not telling you anything tricky.
Yeah.
Sure. Sure. No problem.
When you mentioned the ice, what are the subtleties of, I guess, the footwork when you ice? Are you squared up with the sideline? How open do you get on that ice?
Yeah. This is funny. I don't want to give away all my tricks.
No, don't.
We should do this when I retire. I'll tell you everything. So I'll say this. Something that we talk about, it's actually from when, again, Jenny Busek was here, and we still drill it, is I think the most important part, the position of your feet and how high you jump, you have to know yourself. Like I to me, basketball is a game of like, you have to be realistic. This is not like a macho test. I'm not trying to prove I can do something that people think I can't. I don't care. If I can't do it, you're probably right. So I'm going to try to not I'm trying to hide that part. I'm not trying to like do it more. That's insane. Yeah. So I think your foot alignment really depends on who you are and who you are in relation to who you're guarding. But the one key element I think to icing from a guard standpoint is when you do jump, out of position to prevent them, you really got to get closer to them versus farther away.
Yeah.
That's like a really important element that I think some people miss out on. You have to basically almost like get your forearm on their hip, like that close, so they can feel you and they can't just blast off.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So moving along, our next start sub sit for you, Pat. I'm changing course a little bit. Okay. So you're now we're going to go a middle pick and roll, and you're now the ball handler. Mm-hmm. Do you prefer spacing around the middle pick and roll, cutting, or some type of screening action as a ball handler?
Okay. Again, totally depends on who we have on the floor. I prefer, so we'll go spacing is starting.
Okay.
And then, sorry, it was cutting. And what was the last one?
Screening.
So definitely spacing, given you're a shooter. If you're a shooter, don't go anywhere.
Right.
Like the same thing I was telling you earlier about myself. Like, why am I going to leave the play when my man is going to be in a dilemma? Do I help on this drive and leave the shooter open, or do I not? Right. So that's why I like spacing, assuming you have a shooter. You said it's a middle pick and roll.
Yeah. So just like, say you got two on one side, one on the other, and you're somewhere in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're a shooter, you definitely can stay. So that's why spacing for me would be first. And if the next two, they're actually like pretty even to me. Like for me, I don't like reading it as easy.
Okay.
So if you decide to set a screen, great. I do think if it's like, I'm trying to picture middle screen or roll.
And so maybe the reason for my question is because someone like yourself who's a great passer, and you're coming off that middle ball screen, if you want people cutting through the lane, or you say, hey, I can figure it out myself and just stay spaced, was the reason.
Gotcha. No, so I'll go, so spacing is still the first one but then I'll go cutting as the sub. Because I think, again, I'm very realistic. I'm not necessarily in a place right now where I'm going to create all kinds of angles for people. So but I will find you if you cut.
Sure.
I will find you if you cut. And then, like I said, like the down screen or whatever screening action, whether it's a flare or whatever, that's very similar to me. Like do something and I will find it. I will sniff it out. So maybe I'm flipping these around. Maybe cutting should start.
So with the cuts, I'm always curious as a point guard, what's like your timing? What's your progression? How do you stay aggressive when obviously you have the defense, but you have your roller and you have then a cutter? How are you processing it to find that, like you said, to find the cutter?
Yeah. I guess there is like an order of events that just naturally happens, but I'm not like checking off like a list in my head. It's kind of what you see. Like if you come off and you don't have your shot, right? It probably means because someone helped. So maybe the post player did. So now you're kind of checking out the roller. Did they pop? Did they roll? Or maybe the help came from from the nail. So if the help came from the nail and you see that, then you understand that there might be, if it's a shooter, that spotted up. And that to me it's really the way I see it, especially if it's like a side pick and roll. If you come off a side pick and roll and you see that nail defense, depending on who that is, that's a great time to cut, just right behind their head. And the one thing though that, we talk about with cutters, it's like, you better be cutting to score. Don't just do that to do it.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there are some sacrificial cuts in our game where you suck defenses in, but you have to want the ball. And I think a lot of times people cut and they kind of give you like, you see the back of their head. And they're like, I'm not going to lie. I do that sometimes too. I'm like, oh, I don't want it. But in that scenario, you want to cut so you can actually score. And then you might, suck the defense in, and then the next player will be open. But yeah, so it's like, it turns out to be like a little bit of a checklist, but in real time, it's just all happening at the same time.
Yeah. You're not sitting there and.
Yeah, I know. Oh, didn't guard me. Yeah. Oh, I wish I went that slow.
Yeah. Well, then I guess quickly, my last kind of follow up with that too is, as you're coming off the screen, say they're spacing, you're coming off the screen. Is your first thing to be aggressive, see who stops you? As far as, are you waiting at all to get your roll man? Like, do you want your roll man in front of you, or does it, I'm sure it depends, but is it something you're cognizant of? Like, I got to get the roll man out in front of me so things can happen.
Yeah. So another thing that I don't really have in my game, I worked on it a little bit this off season. It's going to be something where if I do it, I'm going to actually have to make like conscious thoughts to do it. But it's basically, coming off the pick and roll and holding your man off on your back, on your back. Sometimes it's like, I think it's embedded in me to use my quickness. I've been able to use that, my whole life to my benefit, to try to get away from people. Yeah. I feel like if you brought somebody on here who has scouted me, they might say I'm contact averse, which is fine. I don't necessarily love contact, but that's okay. So I think it's just like natural for me to try to get away. And it's actually, counterintuitive, but when you get them on your back, that is how you get away.
Yeah.
Once they're close to you, that is how you can break away. So I haven't really, it hasn't shown up in games yet, but it is something I'm definitely like cognizant of, and I'm trying to do. And to me, that is a great way where if you do come off and your teammate hasn't, you see that you have, maybe they're in a drop, and you see that you have that post player's attention. It's a great time to hold off the defense, to let your teammate, to give them time to get that roll, right? Because usually I know a lot of defenses, the way they are in that drop coverage is you don't let the roller get behind you, right? Yeah. So now the post player has a decision to make. Are they going to come to me because they think that I've got my man beat? Are they going to not let the roller behind? And then that opens something up. So there are moments where you can create that. I just haven't done it that well yet.
Sue, just a really quick follow-up from my end. Who are other players that you like to study in the pick and roll game?
Who actually is really good at what I just talked about? Her name's Lasia Clarendon, and she plays for Minnesota now. She started the season with New York, and they are exceptional at holding people off in pick and rolls. So it's something I've noticed. I've kept my eye on. I think Courtney Vandersloot is such a good passer, like just a phenomenal passer in pick and roll. So I've when I watch her play, I'll kind of see like, what did she see here? Was it something that she saw and then created an angle? Or was it something that she created the angle and then it was there, right? Yeah. She averages like, I don't know what she's averaging this season, but in the last couple of seasons, it's been like 10 assists a game, obviously. And it's a lot of it is out of pick and roll situations. So I've had my eye on that. I think in the NBA, a player that would be more like, of course I love watching Kyrie and Steph, but like I said, I'm realistic. It's probably not going to be part of my game. But someone like Chris Paul, because he's really methodical with it. He like whatever you give him, he's taking, and he can do it in a variety of ways. So somebody like that is someone who I keep my eye on. So he has such a great
mid-range game too, like yourself, like you said too. He operates out of there well.
I know, if I could add that fadeaway, that'd be great. I think that ship has sailed for me.
Sue, start, sub, sit, in terms of career longevity, what's helped you the most? Sleep, stretch, or nutrition?
Ooh, nutrition is the starter. I'll go sleeping is the sub, and I'm sitting stretching. Stretching helps a lot, but it's not more important than the other two.
Yeah. In terms of sleep, I'm always interested. What is your napping pattern?
Yeah. Oh, you're pulling on my heartstrings, because the older I've gotten, the less I've napped. It's devastating. Yeah, it's awful. I used to be clockwork with a 2-hour game day nap, not every day. when I even, like off days, maybe I'll catch a nap, maybe, a little snooze on a practice day. But if we're just talking game day, I was 2 hours, like my body knew. It was like all of a sudden, I don't know, 2:00 rolled around, knocked out till 4, like legit. And the last couple of years, it's just gotten harder and harder. If I can snag like 20 minutes, I'm thrilled. And it's not that I'm in bed, I'm laying, I'm chilling. I just don't nap as much. It's so devastating. I did incorporate some coffee naps at one point. That was, I like that a lot. But it's that actually back to Jenny again. When Jenny was our coach, we didn't have shoot around. We had optional shoot arounds. And was everything she did was with sleep in mind. Like when we go to the East Coast, we would stay on West Coast time as long as we could. Never had shoot around, didn't want to get us up early. So when you don't have shoot around and you're not having to get up at a certain time, the coffee nap later in the day was like where you could implement that. You didn't need the 2-hour nap. But yeah.
So a coffee nap is you drink coffee, take a quick nap, and then you wake up and you're ready to go.
Refreshed, ready to go. Yeah. There's like a whole science to it.
Okay. That's good.
Something with like what caffeine does and the blockers and the sleep clears it and something.
Okay.
And how early or how early did you need to take a nap pregame? Like how many hours then did you want to be awake and fresh?
Yeah, so I can give you, so we have, because of COVID, actually, shoot around times are a little different. So they're, you either have to go at 9:30 a.m. or 11:30. And so the home team gets to choose. We obviously would choose 11:30 because that's too early. So yeah, like I'm back and I'm like chilling, I'm eating, I'm taking a shower. And then I would say for a 7:00 game, I'm probably out the door at 5. So I'll sleep try to sleep from 2:30 to 4:30. And so however the day shakes out, whatever time I'm trying to leave, I'll just set my alarm for 30 minutes or so before that. Okay. To then get up. That's actually when I drink my coffee now. Boop, pound some coffee, out the door.
Awesome. Well, Sue, you're off the start sub sit hot seat. Sorry, that was great there.